I know a lot of people who message me saying that, you know, they don't have any like-minded friends, or, you know, people that I talk to and I connect with saying that, you know, they find it so refreshing to be able to talk about these things because they don't have anybody in their lives that they can talk to about these things. And like, to me, that's a sign that you're not really showing up authentically as who you really are, because if you were, you would make connections with like-minded people. I'm not saying that we all have to be the same, because we're not, but you know, if you're really being you and you're being authentic and you're speaking your truth, then people will know who you are, and others who are like-minded will naturally gravitate towards you. What is up, Soul Fam? It's Sundal from Substance Over Style, and welcome to a new video. Okay, so today we're talking about Dark Night of the Soul. Now, what is Dark Night of the Soul? Dark Night of the Soul is one of the 7 mirrors of the ancient Essenes. It's actually the 7th and final mirror. And what it is it's kind of like a spiritual depression. But it's, personally, I don't think it's actually different from a clinical depression, but that's just my personal opinion. I know that other people have different views about it and they think it's a different thing. Now, I've experienced both. I've actually experienced clinical depression, a mental breakdown that I had when I was 19, which I've talked about on my channel before. And since then, I've also experienced dark nights of the soul. And what I would say was the difference for me was the clinical depression, I didn't know was a dark night of the soul. Whereas every other time that I became depressed after that, I knew that I was going through, because I'd studied this. So I knew that I was going through a kind of emerging. So it's kind of like if you imagine a caterpillar kind of going into its cocoon, it needs to completely break down who it is and then re-emerge as a butterfly. So because I'd been through that depression and I came out so much stronger and so much more powerful, and with some really effective coping strategies, I promised myself that I would never ever become depressed again. So every time I went into a dark night, I just kind of went in quite comfortably and allowed myself to indulge in all the feelings that all the feelings that came up and just move through them. So it wasn't scary because I knew what was happening, and I knew that I was emerging into a more complete me. So it's basically like when your soul gets tired of playing the role that your ego self has assigned to itself. So maybe you realize that the career that you're in or the education path that you went down is not really fulfilling you anymore. Or for me, I realized something even bigger than that, which is not that, you know, I did go through that realization, but I realized that no career can define me. Like, it doesn't matter what I do, that's not who I am. So, you know, I get a lot of messages from people who find it confusing that I'm a model. I'm not a model. Like, that's just something that I do and have done for many years for work, but that's not who I am. And no matter what role I move into in terms of like my career and the way that I make money in this world, none of it will define me. You know, it may define an aspect of who I am. Like, you might be an accountant, but does that describe the essence of who you are? I mean, I would hope not. So, you know, this whole thing, you know, our society loves to put labels on people and label them according to like the position that they hold in society, according to like their career and stuff. So we do place a lot of importance and value towards these labels, and I get why, because also that's the way in which you serve. But it's just, yeah, I've always found it very restrictive, because I know that I'm so much more than a model, or, you know, if I'd become an architect, which is what I trained in, or a fashion designer, or what influencer, or whatever other label that you want to, like, you know, human beings are so much more multifaceted than that. And these career definitions are always changing as well. Excuse me, I'm going to move that because I don't think that you should be staring into that black square. It's like a scrying mirror. We don't need that. So yeah, let me drink some water. Right, so you know, there's probably loads of people going through this process right now. Oh, 1 second. Let me just shout out my friend Lisa's brand. This is a kaftan from Warriors of the Divine. It's a beautiful fair trade brand based in Bali. I'm going to post the link in the description box below. You can't get this one because this is a one-off, but she has loads of other like beautiful kaftans and kimonos and dresses and things like that, and it's all fair trade. So yes, there's probably loads of people going through this process at the moment with everything that's crumbling in the external world. The external world is just a manifestation of what's happening within us. So as the external world crumbles and a new world starts to emerge, that is exactly, the external is mirroring what's happening on a micro level within the human psyche, and not just, you know, individually but collectively, because what's happening with one person is, you know, because we live in a holographic universe, is actually happening, you know, on a macro scale with many, many people. So, you know, we're all kind of going through it. So I've been through it multiple times, so for me it's no big deal. I actually quite enjoy the process because it's a process of alchemy. You're taking everything that's no longer working for you, maybe it did, and you invested heavily in it at the time, but you're now going through this process of alchemizing and transmuting who you were into who you're going to be, which is much more powerful. And it can be a difficult process because, let's say, for example, you invested so much money and time and energy and resources into this path that you thought that you were going down, and then you had this realization, and now you're going to go down another path, and you feel like you need to stick with this. I've been through this process so many times. You need to stick with this because I've invested so much. But you would not maybe the reason why you went down that path was to realize what you realized, and to now you never would have even known that this path existed if you hadn't gone down that path. So maybe the reason why you even went down that path is so that you can go down this path. And you know, I've been through it with so many things that I've done. You know, like I started coaching this year. I never would have even thought to do that or had the confidence to do that if I hadn't basically invested in up-leveling my business skills for my clothing line. So I had so many blocks and fears about launching the clothing line, and I was just doing so many different online trainings and learning the skills because I was so overwhelmed about where to start, how to build a website, how to market things, how to do funnels. And I basically came across this whole community of people who were, you know, doing digital products and were doing coaching and doing that and that and that. And I was just like, okay. So I've had this YouTube channel where I've been trying to like get people to awaken and to realize the truth of who we are and how powerful we are and how to live in alignment with universal karmic laws and spirituality. And for me, it was just a hobby, and it always had been a hobby. But I was getting so many people DMing me and asking for my help, and you know, I was giving people help because I wanted to serve. And then after a while, I started to get overwhelmed with the amount of work that I was doing with the modeling and launching the clothing line and all of that stuff with the model scouting, and now helping people, which I wasn't being paid for. And I was just like, wow, okay, maybe this can be another aspect of my business. So that was a realization that I went through because of the investment into the clothing line. And now the clothing line is just one project of many that I'm doing. So you may find yourself going through a similar process where you realize that something that you were so heavily invested in might not be the thing that you actually end up doing. But by going down that path, you realize that there is something even bigger for you that you could never even have possibly imagined yourself doing in the beginning, that you never would have set out to do if you hadn't set out on the original path. So yeah, I mean, I've definitely had, I'm just trying to think, Have there been other dark nights? I mean, yeah, I definitely went through a dark night where in the beginning when I started learning about like manifestation and law of attraction, and this was before my Kundalini awakening. I read The Secret, started practicing it, lost 2 dress sizes. So you can watch the video where I talk about how I lost 2 dress sizes just by using my mind, started modeling, and then I manifested a Vogue cover, and all of this just by practicing, you know, law of attraction or conscious creation. And I was just like, wow, I can create my own reality and da-da-da-da-da. And then I kind of went through this awakening where I was just like, whoa, okay, I have these powers that I can manifest things. Do I really just want to be manifesting magazine covers, or do I want to be manifesting like mass global change? Because I can see that there's so many things wrong with the world. So I actually went through a massive dark night where I was just like, all of these spiritual teachings are faulty because they're teaching people how to manifest these things, but they're missing the real crux of it, which is global awakening and a restructuring of political systems, a restructuring of financial systems, you know, living in alignment with universal karmic laws of not harming others, not harming animals, not harming the planet. So I went through like a very deep, that was probably the most intense, where I realized that, you know, even though these, you know, teachings, these ancient teachings that The Secret was referring to, were now kind of coming to the collective mass understanding, they were still continuing to be hijacked and subverted and misused and used, you know, for just feeding the same beast. So I went through that kind of awakening where I realized that it just basically the new age, realizing the new age deceptions. And then around that time I found Mark Passio's work, and that's when I started diving even more deeply into, you know, studying the occult and the left and right brain distortions. That's how I discovered that all the teachings about the divine feminine, divine masculine, and universal laws, which are the real laws of attraction, or not even attraction, but just the real laws of conscious creation. And started teaching that on my channel and getting the truth out there. And then I'm kind of going through another little, well, I wouldn't say, because I don't feel depressed at all, but I'm kind of, with Dark Night of the Soul, it's kind of where you realize that your world starts to turn upside down, because you realize that the things that you believed before were not true. And I've been through this so many times, because this is the principle of rhythm. You'd be standing here and you realize, oh my God, the truth is different to what I believed. So the pendulum swings, and the pendulum will always swing, you know, slightly past the truth. If the truth is here, you're standing here, the pendulum will swing and you'll go, yeah, this is the truth. And then you'll swing all the way the other way, and then you're like, oh, no, I've gone too far now. And then you'll come back into the middle. So do study the Hermetic principles if you're interested in these concepts, because it will help you understand truth on a very deep level. So, yeah, I'm now starting to realize that it's, you know, I started to think, okay, if our thoughts create and everything that we experience is our manifestation, you know, how do you expect, like, that, you really telling me that people are like impoverished and suffering, or, you know, being trafficked and all these evil things that are happening in the world, like SRA and pedophile rings and stuff like that, these people are manifesting those realities? What about people who are, you know, in war zones, who are being, you know, unlawfully invaded and terrorized by imperialistic governments? Are they collectively manifesting that reality? So I started to really question some of those teachings, and now I have kind of, I'm really starting to understand this on a very deep level. It's not them that have manifested that reality. It's you, the observer, that have manifested that reality because of your belief in duality. And that's what we have come, this is what we incarnated into, this 3D reality in which there is duality to experience. We manifested duality, and that is what is playing out. So we need to harmonize those dualities within ourselves in order to come into sacred union within ourselves. And sacred union is the direct alignment to source. A lot of people think that sacred union means, you know, man and woman, and that is an aspect of sacred union. It's more a consequence of sacred union. Sacred union is with God, is with the divine. So when we come into union with ourselves, then the collective starts to reflect that externally, and that's when we will no longer see those kind of evil things being perpetrated on the mirror of our consciousness, which is the external world. So this is the work that we have to do, or maybe just the work that I have to do. Maybe once I harmonize all the polarities within myself, then I'll see the external world change, and you're all just a reflection of my own consciousness. That's something that I'm currently grappling with. So what we're kind of going through collectively right now is we're seeing all those things that we hadn't wanted to look at, of our collective manifestation coming to the surface in order to be dismantled, so that we can create a world that's much more in alignment with our new level of consciousness. So what can you do if you're going through a dark night of the soul? So things to really help. Okay, I'm going to grab my notes actually, because now just to help yourself and also to become aware of your own consciousness and what's going on within your own mind, I've always found really, really helpful is journaling. Now, there's obviously different types of journaling. You can do different exercises, or you can do just stream of consciousness. Like if you're going through a really difficult time, like for me, when I was going through really, really intense bouts of emotion that felt so intense that they needed outward expression, journaling got me through so many dark times, because otherwise, you know, what do people do? They self-medicate, they drink themselves into a stupor, they use I don't want to use the word drugs, because I don't believe that all of them are drugs. If you find that, you know, smoking weed helps you, if you find that doing psilocybin, I know that they're doing lots of medical trials at the moment to test the efficacy of psilocybin in treating depression and anxiety. Do that. I know, especially if you can find a good shamanic practitioner who works with psilocybin. If you need a link up, you can DM me, because I know a couple of people. But yeah, you can also do releasing and manifesting rituals. I always used to do them synchronized with the moon. I no longer do moon rituals anymore, because I've been doing quite a lot of research into the moon. And I'm not going to talk about it right now, because it's not the right time. I will be changing my name on Facebook and on Instagram, because I'm using Ishtar Moon, and I'm going to change that, even though Ishtar was a lunar deity. The moon that we have now was not the same moon that we had when Ishtar was, you know, kind of walked on this planet. So, just do some research on the moon if you're interested. I'm not going to talk about it yet, but I will talk about it when I'm ready. So I don't do it according to moon cycles, but if you want to do like releasing and manifesting rituals, what I would do when I would host women's circles, if it was, let's not even mention the moon. Just you can do one where you talk about all the things that you want to release. You can get together with a group of women or a group of people, and you talk about what you want to release that month or that week or whatever time stamp you're using, what you want to let go of. So, you know, it could be something's come up at work, or, you know, you've been processing something, you know, in your relationships with, you know, your partner or with family members, and you're realizing you have an unhealthy pattern around XYZ. So you decide that you want to release that, and having this as a group, in a group setting, is really powerful, so much more powerful than doing it alone, because what you'll find is that there will be common themes that come up. So whenever when I would do the circles, I would often lead the sharing, and I would say, okay, this is what I'm releasing this month. And then other people will be like, yeah, I've also been having that happen in my life, and, you know, with my partner or with my dad or whatever it is. And it can be very powerful medicine for people to feel connected to each other, knowing that they're all going through similar things. If you are thinking of hosting a circle, and I recommend that you do, because this, you know, so needed at this time to build community. It's kind of makes you wonder why they're keeping us all apart right now, because it's super important that we come together right now. But yeah, just make sure that you're, you know, socially distanced and everybody is healthy and doesn't have any symptoms of, you know, whatever's going round. Yeah, have an object like, I don't know, a crystal or something, whatever, and when the person is holding the object and talking about what they want to release or what they want to draw in, what they want to manifest for this month or whatever, that is the only person that is talking. And that I find that that's very, very helpful for creating safe space for people to share. So only that person talks, other people don't interject or give advice. Okay, sorry about that, my battery died. So yes, I'm back. So where was I? I was saying that make sure that you wait until the object that you're using as a talking stick or whatever it is in the person's possession before they speak. I feel like this is important for creating safety. That's how I do it when I kind of hold space for a group, in a group setting anyway. Now, obviously, if you, and this would be a normal consequence of going through a dark night of the soul, that you may not have a community of like-minded people in which to facilitate a circle. Because a natural consequence of going through a dark night of the soul is that people will start to fall away, and you may start to feel like, you know, the people around you aren't really matching your new who you're becoming, and you need to start finding new friends and seeking out new community. Now, you know, building community just comes as a natural, for me anyway, it came as a natural consequence of speaking my truth and showing up more fully and more authentically as the new version of me. I know a lot of people who message me saying that, you know, they don't have any like-minded friends, or, you know, people that I talk to and I connect with saying that, you know, they find it so refreshing to be able to talk about these things because they don't have anybody in their lives that they can talk to about these things. And like, to me, that's a sign that you're not really showing up authentically as who you really are, because if you were, you would make connections with like-minded people. I'm not saying that we all have to be the same, because we're not, but you know, if you're really being you and you're being authentic and you're speaking your truth, then people will know who you are, and others who are like-minded will naturally gravitate towards you. But sometimes it doesn't have to be, you know, it can just be an energetic thing. Like sometimes you get vibes, right, from people. So people who have similar vibes will, you know, gravitate towards each other. But, you know, if your vibe is that you don't really want to show up authentically as yourself, then you're going to naturally vibe with people who are also inauthentic. So try and be as authentic as possible when you emerge from this cocoon that you're kind of going through. Meditate, pray, ask for guidance. This is one of the best things that you can do. It can be difficult for people who are not spiritually inclined, but the whole purpose of this journey is to become spiritually inclined and to connect with, you know, the divine, with source, with God. And, you know, for many years, actually, I avoided using the word God. But the more of my, you know, the more awakening I go through, and, you know, the last few years I've just been like connecting with the divine feminine massively, and the goddess that lives within us all. And the goddess is in union with God, you know, the masculine principle. So I'm not going to shy away from using that language anymore. I understand it can be triggering for people because of the way that religion has been used to dominate and control and divide people. And that's exactly why it's been done, to get people to turn away from God and the living God. And the more we turn away from God, what's the consequence of turning away from God? It's living in a world without God. It's living in a world run by, you know, the adversary and in deception and not according to universal karmic laws. And we basically see the mess that we're currently seeing right now, where people who are not godly, who do not understand the difference between right and wrong, and people who are not in their sovereign power. Just those kind of principles run the show. So if we want to get out of this mess, we have to connect to God and co-create with God. Nourish yourself. So important. Nourish yourself, okay? Because this process will cause you to block out anything that isn't serving you any longer. All the things that you previously liked to do, you may not like to do anymore. So, you know, you'll just basically start doing the bare minimum. So make those bare minimum things. Just turn everything into a ritual. I love turning things into a ritual. So like, you know, getting ready in the morning, like, you know, maybe, you know, there are times when you don't even want to get ready, you don't want to do anything, and it depends on where you are in this journey. So for me, when I was, even before I started modeling, you know, I couldn't leave the house without putting on makeup and wearing a ridiculous outfit. So for me, coming back home to myself was in doing the least, and, you know, being my natural self and undone and kind of wild and, you know, free, and not wearing a scrap of makeup and not doing my nails and just being very barefoot, and, you know, and it was amazing. But then after a while, I was starting to feel like I had had enough of that, and now I like to, you know, turn getting ready into a ritual, but I'm balanced with it as well. So wherever you are in your healing journey, just turn whatever you're doing, bring mindfulness and presence. You know, when you're making dinner, be very mindful about what you're cooking, what you're putting into your body, because what you're consuming becomes you. Are you eating high vibrational foods, or are you eating low vibrational foods? Are you eating processed junk food and animals that were slaughtered and, you know, had a horrible life and did not want to die? Or are you eating high vibrational plant foods that, you know, want you to eat them because you propagating their seeds creates more life? There's a reason why fruit vibrates at a super high frequency, and, you know, dairy products and alcohol and meat vibrate at a super low frequency. You know, light a candle when you're eating, you know, really like be very mindful about it, like burn incense in the morning. You know, when you're doing your movement practice, you know, whether it's going to the gym, or whether it's just doing yoga, or yoga asanas more specifically, or whatever it is, just create like a sacredness. Like, you know, I love like lighting incense before I start my yoga practice. I even do it sometimes if I'm doing not yoga asanas, but like Pilates, or, you know, HIIT workouts, you know, just making it very sensual, making it a sensual experience. It makes you feel really grateful to be alive, to be in this body, to be here in this physical dimension. I mean, it can be really dark and scary, and it can feel very like we're imprisoned by time and all of those things. But when you kind of bring like mindful presence into the moment, you realize that in that moment everything is okay, and it's really a gift to be alive, and it's a gift to just exist and be conscious and be living and experiencing and learning everything that we're here to learn, like, you know, on the journey of evolution and consciousness in general. So yeah, that's all I have to say on that one. I hope that helps. If you've got any questions, you can ask me in the comment box below. If you want to suggest any videos, you can suggest videos. If you liked this video, smash that like button, helps with the algorithm. Share this video as always. Subscribed if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell icon so that you can get notified. If you want to book a session with me, DM me on Instagram. Thanks so much for watching, guys. I will see you in the next video. One love.
You're introduced to LSD, and unless you've taken some other drug, like for instance like marijuana or something, well, you know, it's an altogether new thing.